Hey, good morning, Sarah. I hope you're doing well and hope we can get this matrix thing figured out. Figured the easiest way to do this is with a little video here. So hopefully this will make sense to you and you won't struggle with these matrices anymore. So here's the setup for this problem. And the strategy that we use is we want to go column by column to get the numbers in the right place. So we're going to start with the first column, and when we start with this column, we want to get a 1 in this first spot. So we're fortunate here because we already have a 1 there. If we didn't have a 1, let's say these two rows were switched, we can just switch rows. That's one of the things that we're able to do in matrices, but we got the 1 there. So the next step is to get these two to be zeros. And so if I can add a -7 to this, then -7 plus 7 would be a 0. So that's what I'm going to do. And to do that, I'm going to multiply this top row by -7, and I'm going to add it to the second row. Now, anytime you're adding rows, the only row that ever changes is the row that you're adding to. So my first row is going to stay the same. My second row is the one that's going to change since I'm going to add to that. So -7 times 1 is -7 plus 7. There's my 0. -7 times 1 is -7 plus 10 is 3. And -7 times 1 is -7 plus 13. So that becomes a 6. And -7 times 31, what's that? -217. And I'm going to add it to 301. And that looks like an 84. Okay, so I got my 0 there. Next step is I want to get a 0 here. So to do that, I'm going to use that same row, and I'm going to multiply the first row by -14 and add it to the last row. So again, the only row that changes is going to be the row I'm adding to, so that would be the third row. So 1 times -14 is -14 plus 14 is 0. 1 times -14 is -14 plus -10 is -24. -14 times 1 is -14 plus 0, and that's -14. And -14 times 31 looks like -434. Okay, so got my first column. Now I'm going to go to my second column, and I want a 0 there. Or I could get a 0, I'm sorry, I want a 1 here. Or I could get a 1 there, and I could switch those two rows, and I'd be in good shape. I don't really want to mess with the first row, because if I mess with the first row, I'm going to move that 1 out of place. And so when I look at this second row and try to figure out how to get a 1 there, one of the things that I notice is all three of those are divisible by 3. So I'm just going to divide everything in that row by 3. So my first row stays the same. My second row becomes 0. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 84 divided by 3 is what? 61? No, that's not right. Goes into their ones. Is that right? Hang on. Nope, I'm way off. Okay, let's try that again. 84 divided by 3, about 28. Okay, and my last row stays the same. And now I want to get a 0 here. So this is a little tricky because I want to get a 0 here without messing up this first column. So I don't want to add the first column, first row to the third one, because then I'm going to get a 1 and it's going to mess up that number. But if I multiply this row by 24, then I'm going to get a 0 there, and it's not going to mess up my first my first column there. So my first row stays the same. My second row stays the same, because remember, the only row that changes is the row that I'm adding to. And so my last row, let's see what we get there. So 24 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0. And so notice when we use the second row, it doesn't change that 0. It doesn't mess me up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go back and fix that again. All right, so my second one is 24 times 1 is 24, minus 24 is 0. I like that. 48 plus negative 14 is 34. And then this last one, let me get my calculator out. So 24 times 28 equals 672 minus 434, and I get a 238. Okay, and at this point I'm done with the matrix part, and I can go back and put them into equations. So remember, this is my x column, my y's, my z's, and my constant. So 1x plus 1y plus 1z equals 31. 0x plus y plus 2z equals 28. And the last one, 0x plus 0y, 34z equals 238. And now I can just work my way backwards and figure out my z and then my y and then my x. So I'm just going to divide both sides by 34 here, and 238 divided by 34 equals 7. So z equals 7. And I'm going to plug that in here. So that's y plus 14 equals 28. So y equals 14. And finally, I'm going to plug those two back into the first one. So x plus 14 plus 7 equals 31. And I think we get x equals 10. So that's how we solve this one. So the strategy, work on the first column, get a 1 here, 2 zeros, then a 1 here, and a 0 there, and you're off to the races. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions about that, please let me know, and I'll be glad to do whatever I can to help you. So I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you.